Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of But I Did It, the podcast where we talk about real people who turn some of life's hardest moments into powerful comebacks. I'm your host, Lashay. Today's guest has a story that stops you in your tracks. Paul went from incarceration to Stanford University. Yes, Stanford. And his journey is powerful. It's a powerful reminder that your past doesn't get to determine your future unless you let it. We're talking resilience, accountability, mindset shifts, and rewriting your own story. Let's get into it. Paul,
Yes.
thank you so much for being here. For our listeners who are just now meeting you, can you share a little bit about who you were before everything happened?
Yeah. So my name's Paul Calvo. I'm originally from Fresno, California. As you mentioned, I went to prison. I spent most of my teenage years and my 20s incarcerated, whether it was juvenile hall, county jail, prison. And I finally paroled at 28 and decided that I no longer, something had to change. Something had to change. I didn't know how to go about it. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And my sister introduced me to the world of education. And that's when a huge change happened. And, as you mentioned, went to Stanford. So one thing led to another, community college, then Stanford. And then I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering.
Wow, electrical engineering. I have never studied engineering. I have a few friends that actually took that path, but that's not easy. That's not easy.
No, not one bit, not one bit. I like to do a lot of work with, people that are either at the community college level or the university, like undergrads, and like helping them prepare for whether it's graduate school or, transferring to university. And I was recently talking to some, youth at a community college, and um at the community college level, it was kind of easy. I put in the work, right? Like I studied, I hours on homework. Um, it was Stanford that was a kick in the mouth,
Mm,
man. That was difficult, but it forced me to be a better scholar, a better engineer, a
okay.
better problem solver. So it worked out nicely. The pain and suffering led to led to success. That's what matters.
Yeah, and that's great. So you said that it was your sister who introduced you into the world of education. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit more. What was that like for you, that shift in that moment of being introduced to that and then kind of having that light bulb moment or that moment of change of this is what I want for myself.
Yeah. So it started with my sister, and there was one day where she was working because she was in college, and um, I think she was either like a junior or a senior. I know she was taking upper division, and she was working on an upper division like statistics course, and she was kind of explaining it to me, giving me the ins and outs, and oh, you do this for that, and I was able to keep up with her. And then like I almost solved one of her problems, and she was like, are you? She's like, are you messing with me right now? I was like, well, no, like like this, and she was like, that's pretty close. Like you're right, like on the path, right? And it was like she was blown away by it. And she was like, you need to go back to school. And I was like, no, like guys like me do not go to school because for one, I'm full of tattoos. My criminal record will like bar me from like a professional career. Like I'll go to school for nothing because I won't be able to do anything with that degree.
So you had
And
that moment of disbelief of like, that's not for me. That's never
exactly.
gonna work for who I am.
Yes. And I was shooting to become a welder. I was wanting to join a union in Fresno, and everything was looking great to join the union. And somehow, some way, I gave them the wrong number when I put my personal number down. And so when they called me up for work, they got no answer. They hung up, took me off the list. And that was like that sign where like, okay, I need to go back to school. I felt like that was a sign from, my higher power,
Hmm.
to be like, okay, school's the route. And I just hit the ground running. I asked my sister, like, hey, how, like, help me. Like, what do I do? She
Right.
took me to Fresno City. She got me plugged in. I took some exams to determine what math I was going to be in. She helped me register. If it wasn't for her, I would have never been able to set anything up. And it was funny because the math exam that I took, there were 3 math like tiers, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I took the lowest level math exam, and I think I'm out of like 45 questions. I think I missed like 2 or something. And the lady that was helping me do my intake, she was like, no, 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 dude. She was like, you're going to take the hardest exam. And she's like,
Uh-huh.
here. She's like, here. She gave me the exam. I went back in, took another exam. uh, um, and so when I came out and she scored it for me, I was teeter-tottering between algebra and trigonometry. And she asked me, she was like, well, what do you want to major? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just here because I'm going to do
So at the
school now.
time, you didn't even know exactly what field
No,
you wanted to go into. You were just like,
no.
this is a calling. I'm going to answer the calling. Something's telling me to go in this direction. I need to get back in school. And so you did. You followed that. You listened to your higher power, went and signed up. And then that's kind of the path that it led you to that direction.
Yes.
And
Yes.
now
Yeah.
it's a passion. You love it. How do
Yeah.
you
Oh yeah.
feel? Like, do you think it was the right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it was along the way that I discovered what I wanted to do. I think that was like probably the best thing for me because I get easily distracted, but
Hmm.
not in the sense where like you and I are having a conversation and then I'm just like, "Squirrel," like I
Okay.
get distracted with like, like for instance, my major, like I discovered, taking a physics class, I took electricity and magnetism and was like, this is amazing. And that kind of pushed me into electrical engineering, but it also made me want to pursue physics because I was like, I really want to take more E&M classes.
Hmm.
So that's what I mean by like distracted, where I was like, no, I want to do math. No, I want to do physics. I want to do
Right.
electrical engineering. I was all over the place. But it wasn't until I got to Stanford that I really solidified that, no, I'm going to do electrical engineering. Like it allowed me to take that theory of electricity and magnetism and actually apply it use my hands to
Hmm.
apply it. So that's and if I were to go back, I would do it again. Like electrical engineering has been like, or is, in my opinion, the most fun I've had in any major. So yeah, that definitely
That's
my
great.
passion.
That's great. And so that journey, what did that look like for you? I know you said you had like initially that first moment of like disbelief of, oh, I can't really see myself becoming a student, let alone, college and having a full on career. And so when did you get to the point of like believing in yourself again, creating that discipline and changing your mindset to say, I am that person or I'm at least capable of giving it a try?
I would have to say like that happened after my first semester at Fresno City. Um, I ended up the lady that was helping me with my intake. She set me up to start off in trigonometry, and it was my trig teacher, Miss Wen, that really like let me like solidify like, oh no, I belong here. And this, I didn't at the time I didn't know about Rate My Professor, so like I didn't do Rate My Professor to see if she was strict or tough or whatever. I just was like, this class fits my schedule. I'm gonna take it.
Right. Right. I've
And
been there. Been there.
yeah. And she retired, but at the time she was like the toughest, most like, yeah, she was the toughest math professor at Fresno City. And when I started to realize that when like I would tell people like, oh no, I'm in Miss Wen's class, and they'd be like, what? You're in Miss Wen's? And I'm like, I love it. I'm
Right.
having a blast. Like I love the strict policies, the no,
The
it's homework is
structure.
yeah, the structure. I just got out of prison, like
Right.
I needed that.
It worked. Yes.
Yes. I needed that. Like I needed, her voice in my head, like, oh, you better turn this in, you better finish your homework.
Right.
And so I had a blast. And at the end of the semester, I was her best performing student. And she pulled me to the side and was like, you should be a math tutor. And I was like, she didn't know my background, but I was thinking in
Hmm.
my head, like, lady, you have no idea. I'm on parole.
Right.
What do you mean I need to be a
You want
math
me to
tutor?
tutor somebody? Like,
I was like thinking to myself, this woman is tripping. Like, what? And she was like, no, like you need to be a math tutor. She's like, I will be your recommendation. And she was like, and trust me, she was like, at the tutorial center, if I'm your recommendation, she's like, you're in there. And I was like, all right. She kind of puffed up on me,
wow.
and I was like, all right, yes, ma'am. And after the first semester, I became a math tutor, and then I just from there on out, it just felt like home.
Hmm.
I was either in class or I was in the tutorial center, helping other students with their math homework, their set, math P sets, whatever they're working on that was math related.
Right.
And then that turned into, being a physics tutor, an engineering tutor, all of that. Yeah. And
Wow.
then, yeah, and I continued being a tutor until I transferred to Stanford. But it was that moment that I realized, like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm cut out for college.
Yes. And so did you continue with tutoring at Stanford, or was that something
Yeah,
really? Okay.
yeah, yeah. I did it I did it in two different ways. I would tutor math kind of like on the side, not through the
Hmm.
university. And then through the university, I would help with their computer science class. They have CS 106A and 106B, and those are um, like the first introductory CS courses.
Went to Stanford and continued tutoring there as more of like a side part-time.
Yeah, yeah. So I did math kind of on the side, but through the university, I also tutored their intro CS courses. So their CS1 and CS2, which they call Computer Science 106A and B. And I did it through Layer, but I didn't do so they have like the main layer where if you're a TA for the course, you work there. But then also there is Black Layer, and then there is the Soul Layer. And Soul Layer is for like the Hispanic native students, and then Black Layer
Okay.
is for all Black students that are taking the computer science courses. And so I
Hmm.
tutored through Black Layer. And yeah, it was all my students were all, I mean, they weren't all CS students because, you don't have to be CS to take the intro CS students, but they were all Black students at Stanford. And the only other requirement was that they were either in CS1 or CS2. So that's how I continued tutoring at Stanford.
That is awesome. That's awesome. And so looking at it there, so in that moment, you're at Stanford, you're tutoring, and you probably exceeded more than what your initial thought was. Like you said, first signing up for college and going from completing a 2 year to now at a university. I want to see like your mindset of what were you thinking and how did you feel? Because to look back 5 years before that and where you were in that place to where you were at that moment, like how did you feel with that journey? And kind of want you to share a little bit more of like what did the changes look like for you? Because not just physically, you're not just in a new location, but mentally, emotionally, you're just well.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have to be like, so what really changed a lot was my mindset on who I wanted to spend my time around.
Okay.
I had some homeboys that were killed, and I would go to their funerals, and and there was just like a very obvious disconnect. Like they still called me by my nickname, right? Hey, what's up, Looney, right? And like they would, I would be able to like keep up with them, but like my conversations were different. Like
Huh.
they wanted to tell
Right.
me about, how they just got out or how they're pushing dope and stuff. And I was just kind of like, I don't know, like it felt awkward.
Right.
But I wasn't gonna like not pay my respects because, at one time, my homeboys like meant a lot to me, like we did a lot
Mm-hmm.
together. We did time together, like, especially the ones that did pass away. We connected more than just being from the same neighborhood. Like they were almost like family. So,
Mm-hmm.
realizing that it was kind of like, okay, like I didn't want, it wasn't like I was like, oh, get away from me. But I realized like, okay, I'm kind of at a different level than they are right now mentally.
Yeah.
And I just really just started sticking to either to myself or like the close friends that I was making at Stanford. But the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that didn't change was the chip on my shoulder. Like, um, I take things very personal. Like
Okay.
it's something that I just cannot change. Take things like very personal. You know, when someone says like, "Oh, you can't do that," I'm like, "Oh, like, all right." You know, and I was like that in prison as well. Like I took it personal. The people that like forgot about me while I was in prison, like I took that
Mm-hmm.
personal. And it's what drove me when I got out to be like, okay, watch how I change now, you know?
Right.
And it was while I was at Stanford that like people that did doubt me, like especially the couple of people that I told, like, hey, I applied to Stanford, and they're like, oh, you're not going to get in. And then when I got in, I was like, yeah, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
what's up? You know, I'm here. I'm here to tell you I got in, you know, but I didn't want to do it in a way where I seemed cocky because I like to stay humble because I know life can really humble you. But
Yes.
I did things in a way where I was like, see, I told you, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that continued at Stanford. But what did change were the people that I had like the grudges with, right? Like the personal vendettas with, where it was like, you know, if someone was like, "Oh, you shouldn't take that class because it's like, you know, might be too much for you, might be too difficult," and I was like, "Excuse me?
Right.
You know who you're talking to? You know, I'm taking it now just because you said not to, you
Just
know." So,
because, yeah.
yeah. And so that's kind of what changed. But like I said, the main thing that did change was just realizing that like my mind is at a different level, and my conversations that I like to carry on are now completely different than what they used to be while I was in prison or on the streets. So that's the main thing that did change.
And that shit for you. Were you always open about sharing your past? Was this something that you were always comfortable with? Like you said, you would get instructors or people that would kind of talk with you and like, oh, you're doing great, or we can see the potential in you, and people that encourage you along the way. Were you always at the point where you're like, oh, I just, I want you to know where I came from and what I've been through to what it took me to get here? Or was that something that kind of developed over time?
That developed over time. Again, you know, like growing, I always think of it like I turned into a man in prison, right? Like I turned 18 when I was locked up. Like
Mhm.
I got out and went back at 19 to go do more time, you know, getting out at 28. So it was like, it was like, you know, prison really molded the person that I was. And in prison, you mind your business. Like you know, and that's how I was at school. I showed up, went to office hours, did my work, did what I had to do, and went home. It wasn't
Mhm.
until I started meeting with, at the time, you know, Dr. Pimentel was the president of Fresno City College. And
Mhm.
he was doing a lot of work for the formerly incarcerated people on campus. And that's when I
Okay.
realized that, like, oh, there are other people at Fresno City that have been to prison. And I started
Yes.
connecting with them.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I started connecting with them, and it was like maybe my third semester. It was like the start of my second year, and they were always, and like they thought like I had just started. I'm like, no, I've been here like a year, and they're like, dude,
Yeah.
where have you been? You know, I'm like, I've been minding my own business. That's what I've been doing, you know? And so it wasn't until then, and then, you know, being the only like engineering major at the time, because I know like engineering is kind of seen as like the toughest of
Mhm.
majors compared to, you know, other majors. But if you ask me, I rather it to me, engineering is easier than like philosophy or something. I would have failed philosophy classes. I would have, because no, I need that line drawn, you know, like
Right.
there is
Right.
no ambiguity to the, you know, I can't do that. But anyways, it was once I started connecting and then realizing like I'm doing something different. And then it really hit hard when I got into Stanford. It was like, you've been to prison and now you're going to Stanford. Like that isn't, like you don't hear those in the same sentence or the same paragraph, or
Right.
and so it was that made me open up and like be like, oh, this is something I should be sharing and talking about, and that's when I started like crafting my story and putting it together, because I would love I would love the expressions I would get when I would tell people, like, and they knew that I'd been to prison, and I'm like, oh, but by the way, I go to Stanford. They're like, what?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you go to Stanford? I'm like, yeah, I study electrical engineering at Stanford. And they're just like, it's like I could have grown two heads and I would have gotten the same reaction. So yeah, it wasn't really until finding that community at Fresno City and then also transferring where I really like solidified my story.
And love that you brought that up because a lot of people don't realize that there is a community.
Hmm.
And this is again from experience with I've been in the same boat. I was in prison and then came out and it took a minute, like you said, it wasn't automatic, but get to the point of like, I want to do something different. I don't want to
Hmm.
continue in this rotation of, like you said, you come home and then you're back, and then you come home and then you're back in there. And it's like, well, what else is there? And it takes having those right people around you to kind of point that out to say, like, hey, do you know that the world has so many other things?
Yeah.
Like, it's so much that you're missing out on by limiting yourself, because that's really what it is. It's a limit. And then you kind of, again, for myself, you get into that mindset of I am limited
Yeah.
because I've been to prison, because I made such and such choices. I don't have the same opportunities or possibilities as everyone else. In reality, that's not the truth. We also have the same opportunities as everyone else, but often
Hmm.
we're afraid to act on that or even to get out there and try. And so it's really, you're a trailblazer. Like, you're setting a path for so many
Yeah.
other people. And I love that you have the confidence to be able to share your story so that others can see that it is possible,
Hmm.
especially for the youth. It starts, I think,
Yeah.
at such a young age, especially, like you said, juvenile, when you're in there and as we both know, being in that environment is not uplifting. You don't have
Yeah.
anybody, rarely somebody trying to tell you that you can get past this, that you will be able to change your life around, that you
Yeah.
can still go to college. And so to have that image out there as to someone that has done it, especially in this area, Fresno, the
Yeah.
Valley, we don't see a lot of that. And so I
Yeah.
just really commend you on that. Like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, coming on and sharing today. Thank you so much. I really want to highlight your graduation. And so I know for me, when I finally got to that moment, I'm going to have a degree. I am having this celebration. I'm walking the stage because I did not graduate high school. I had ended up getting my GED. And so I never had like a graduation. And so for me, college was my first graduation. And it was awesome. It was
Yeah.
awesome, and I didn't do like a huge celebration or go anywhere or do anything. It was just having that moment of being able to walk across the stage and collect my diploma and know that I'm being recognized for the effort that I have put in. What was that like for you at Stanford, a graduation moment? Like, can you share your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, it was great. So I officially finished my degree the quarter before like the commencement. So I wasn't at Stanford for like the spring quarter. So I left campus at the end of winter quarter, which ends like March 20th, give or take. And then I went out to Houston to start working for Phillips 66 as an electrical engineer. And then I flew back for my graduation at the end of June, or yeah, middle of June. Sorry, middle of June for graduation.
Mhm.
And so it was great. I got to see my friends, even though it'd been like 3 months since I hadn't seen them, but still, it was a while. So
Yeah.
I got to see my friends. And what Stanford does is they do dinner on the quad. So it's the Thursday before the weekend of graduations because you have graduations on Saturday and Sunday depending on your department, what clubs you're with or organizations. And so it's the Thursday before, and it's pretty much like they just shut down main quad, and you can, they have alcohol drinks, they have food, they have little appetizers. And that
Mhm.
was funny because I was hanging out with all my transfer. There were other transfer students, but they were all like older. So like, they were in their 30s, and a little alcoholic drink for us is not going to like get us all. So it was funny seeing the younger kids that were like 22, 23,
Right.
really weren't like really hadn't experienced drinking,
Mm-hmm.
they, a couple of shots in and they're already like, yeah. And I'm just like, oh, you little kids, how cute, right? So that was fun. And then we had our graduation on Sunday, and that was oh man, it was it was so hard to keep my emotions in check, because it was
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I said, like prison teaches you to keep your blinders on, and or what's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Right.
What can I do to make this day go faster? What can I do to speed
Mm-hmm.
up the week? What can I do to eat up more time so that way, like,
Yes.
like,
Yes. It's
how it
on
is
that
to
constant countdown, that constant. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, and I had been like that in school, and it didn't really hit me until graduation, where I was like, I just graduated Stanford. Like,
Right.
what the
Right.
heck? Like, I have a degree in electrical engineering. What in the world? Like, it just like, and it
Yeah.
was in the middle of like hanging out with some of my boys, right? Like, and I mean like the boys, right? Like these were my road dogs, right? And they were graduating, and they're all veterans. They're all in the military. And it
Wow.
was like
Okay.
it got me to the point to where I was like starting to get teary eyed, and I was like, nah, man, like, don't you start crying now. You know what I mean? Like, get it together, But it was really emotional, because it was like, oh man, like I'm about to get, like, I have this degree. I'm a Stanford graduate now. Like,
Yeah.
like it was just a weird feeling. And then just walking out and seeing the entire stadium filled, and like it was just
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And I'm not one to, I guess it's because I spent time in prison when like iPhones were coming out and this social media stuff was coming out. But I'm not really one to like take pictures of like every event, or like take pictures of my food, or take pictures, like I don't do any of that. But in that moment, I was like, no, I need to take videos. I need to take pictures. Like
Yeah.
I just, me and my friends, like I have hundreds of pictures from that day and videos, to where it was like, like it moved me, to where I was like,
Yes.
I need to have these to like relive the moment again, So yeah, it was a huge, like, emotional roller coaster that day.
That's
Um, but it was probably one of the most like meaningful, happiest times of my life, because I had my kids there. Like, they got to see me, they got to, you know,
yes.
like, hang out with me as before I walked the stage. Like, it was amazing.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. For anyone listening who feels like their past disqualifies them for their future, like what would you want to say to them?
Actually, it's the quite opposite. Like, what I've seen is my past has been like this amazing catapult that has actually sent me up over very high barriers that my mind put in place. I thought, "Oh, I can't ever get a job with a corporation." And it's like, no, that's not true. Like, I've worked with two of the
No.
biggest corporations as an engineer, and it was amazing, because at Philips, especially at Philips 66, one of the guys that interviewed me actually saw my episode on another podcast where I talked about my life and my experience in prison. And
Mm-hmm.
he reached out, as soon as I accepted the job offer, he reached out and like told me like, "Hey man, I saw your episode. Congratulations, man. Super moving. So glad that like you're joining the company. So glad that I got to interview you."
Wow.
Like, super, like blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, okay. Like, and it just made everything like a smoother transition into the company, to where it was like, I know people here don't really like, they're not judging me for that, So,
Right.
I think it's, if we can get out of the cage that our mind really puts itself in, we'll realize that we can do like great things. Like I said, like my past is now like that huge catapult that just sends me over that barrier.
Yeah.
And I say that because like it's proof, right? Like, not just in corporate America, but I'm currently applying to go, back school. I want to go back and suffer some
You going
more.
back?
I want to go back and, I miss having homework to do on weekends, right? Miss labs on weekends, but I want to teach. So I want to teach guys in prison. I want to bring electrical engineering, computer science to guys in prison. And, I need a master's at least if I'm going to do community college, and I need a PhD if I want to do it at a university. So I'm applying to grad schools, and in my application, that's what I put. That's exactly what I put in there. It's not like, to me, I see it as like a strength now. Like it's now
Mm-hmm.
like like it's the main like mechanism behind why I move the way I move. And so, I talk, like I said, I talked about it in my graduate school applications because that's what's the driving force. And, schools see that and they value that. They see that I'm not just doing it just to have another feather in my cap. I'm doing this
Right.
for real change. I'm doing this for a real reason. And so far, I've heard back from one school and I got in. So hopefully
Congrats.
more follow. Yeah, thank you. So, all that to say that, like, talk about it, be
Talk
open.
about it.
Yeah. If anything, people, with similar paths like us,
Mm-hmm.
they should start getting into storytelling, creative writing, right? Like how to put this together. How do
Right.
you tell your
Exactly.
story, So I just think that the moment they can break out of that barrier or that cage they've put their mind in, they'll see that they can do great things because of their past.
Yes. Yeah. That's so true. And I feel the same. I mean, it took me a long time to get to the point to want to share my story. I always had the thought, but I was not brave enough, to be honest. It was just like, people are going to judge me. I worked so hard to put this gap in between there and now, and
Hmm.
I just wanted people to see the now. And as I was, moving forward and kind of thinking of like what I want to do and in my prayer and just listening to, like you said, your calling, that's something that really was pushed on me is like, you need to share. You need to talk about your past. You need to talk about where you've been and how you have come to where you are today. And in doing that, I am realizing that that's what's going to get me to where I need to be. And not
Yeah.
just for myself, but like I said, I have children. I want
Yeah.
them to be able to know that life happens. Life
Yeah.
happens to everybody.
Yeah.
We're all human. We all make choices that we don't always feel proud of. But at the end of the day, when we give that up and we surrender it and we're able to listen to our higher power, it can become a strength. Like you said, it does not have to be a weakness. We allow that to take us and propel us forward in life and be a star, like a light for others, to guide others. And so I love that you want to take that and be able to missionary back to others and show them their a path as well. So thank you
Yeah.
again, Paul, for coming on and sharing your story with us today. Do you have any last farewells or anything you would like to kind of end this episode with?
Yeah, I really like, and I think, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that you said this in the beginning because right, like we come from the same field, if you will, right? Like a same subset of college students, right?
Yes.
Where you said, our past doesn't define our future, and that's like very true. And some, some may be like, oh, it's cliche or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the truth. And I realized that, and that's why I love that statement so much and I use it so much, is because, when I was in prison, I spent a lot of time either in solitary confinement, in the SHU. And, when you're doing time like that, and, there were some times where I never left my cell because the shower was in my cell.
Mm-hmm.
And the policy at this prison was, if the prison's on lockdown, then the SHU is on lockdown, so you don't come out for
Wow.
rec. Yeah, so you're in your cell literally 24/7 until the prison comes off lockdown. And so there were times where it would be 2 or 3 months a prison would be on lockdown, and you're just in your cell 2 to 3 months. There's no commissary, there's nothing. You don't leave your cell because, again, the shower's in the cell.
Right.
And at this time, I was housed alone because there were no other guys from Fresno in the SHU. So, you know how they
Mhm.
house people with, who they roll with.
Yeah.
So, and so it was like in that moment, I never thought I would get out and be at school. I never
Mhm.
thought I would I didn't even think I'd be going back to community college, like
Right.
forget Stanford and forget being an engineer, but like never even thought I would be going back and also being successful, like taking hard classes and
Mhm.
killing it. Like that thought never crossed my mind. Had you come to my cell door at that time and been like, you know what, you're gonna get out and you're
Mhm.
gonna go to school and you're gonna transfer to Stanford, I would have been like, man, get away from me right now before I stab you. Like you're weird, Like what, like I would have never thought that, never ever. The thought never crossed my mind. And so to see that, that's like to me, like how I can explain like your past doesn't define your future. And that's true for anyone that comes from or that shares the same background as us, right? Because there are guys and women that are in prison right now
Mhm.
that have the capacity to get out, go to school for any major and be successful.
Yes.
The thing that keeps them from doing that is that mindset of, oh yeah, because of my past, it's gonna,
Mhm.
it dictates my future, when that's not the case. So I really like to end on, your past does not determine your future one bit. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank
Hmm.
you. And I pray, I'm really hopeful that this reaches the right people because
Yes,
that
same here.
alone right there, there's so many people out there that just cannot get out their own head. Get out
Yeah.
your head. You're
Yeah.
capable. You're worthy. You can do it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Your story is a powerful example of what happens when resilience meets intention. And thank you for sharing so openly and reminding us that transformation is always possible. For everyone listening, if today's episode inspired you, share with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to follow the show and never miss an episode. I'm going to link your website down at the bottom for anyone that would like to read more and get in contact with you. Also, really quick, like you said, there is support at colleges, Fresno City, Fresno State, and one program that I'm well aware of is Project Rebound. And
Hmm.
so I will be linking that in the show notes as well. All right. Thank
Nice.
you, everybody,
Yes.
for listening. This is But I Did It.